back to my channel. My name is Marianne Allen. I am back with another video. I promised to do this video. I got sick here in Liberia and I was rushed to the hospital. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience. I'm still recovering, and at least I'm strong a little bit to talk about this or to hop on here and do a video. If you're new here, I relocated from the US about 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago. Just about that. Stayed 2 years in Ghana. Just kind of transitioned to, I'm in the process of transitioning to Liberia. So between Ghana and Liberia. And I'm just documenting my experience as I go. The good, the bad, the ugly, the glorious, all of it. No sugarcoating, so that hopefully it can help you plan your move and be more prepared than maybe I was. So talking about healthcare today in Liberia, that is one of the areas of concerns or fears for a lot of Liberians. There are a couple of things people consider when they're moving, depending on if you are coming with your family, example, children versus your age and stuff like that. Healthcare is always going to be on the top list of concerns. And so far, a lot of us just came because we were like, you know what? It is what it is. We will make it work, without really getting some good insight about healthcare here in Liberia. And maybe that decision too was kind of easier because we're much younger. Our health is in a good state, etc. However, you do have to be concerned when it comes to emergencies and stuff. But that decision was easier compared to a much older person that would be moving and probably has some kind of underlying condition or are concerned about in case of an emergency, what happens. Those are all of the things that impact a person's decision to relocate to a country like Liberia that is still struggling to meet Western standard. So a couple of things. Now, from my experience, there are a couple of hospitals that we are familiar with, like the Catholic hospital and the government JFK hospital. We've heard a lot of horrible stories surrounding those healthcare systems. Some of us have experiences with losing loved ones at those healthcare systems, and we know more could have been done. We know that professionalism is also something that is questioned in those healthcare institutions. One experience with Catholic is my auntie got sick and she got taken to the hospital. So I went to visit her there. She was in the emergency room, and so I was there with her in the emergency room. First of all, there's no air condition. The place is hot, like you're sick and you can't breathe. The place is stuffy and is really hot. Even for me, who was the guest, I was pretty uncomfortable. I'm like, this thing, so that means family has to bring fan to put in the room for you. You pretty much have to bring everything. So that was one red flag for me. And then the second thing is the nurses there didn't seem professional. The nurses station was not far from where my auntie's room was, and they were gossiping about patients. This other one was like, she says she got diarrhea, but she's not gonna stop eating everything that comes. And you can't do that. It was a turn off for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so rude. Not even thinking there were other patients and families right around. Like, I mean, if you're talking about another patient like that, I should assume that you'll talk about my own patient like that when I leave. So that was another red flag. And then another red flag for me was The nurse came into the room. She has all these drugs. She says she's trying to administer it through the IV. And my aunt asked her about what medication she's giving and what they're for. And she had a nasty attitude. Oh my gosh. She had a nasty attitude. She didn't even want to answer. She didn't even explain anything. I was just trying. Y'all know Marianne was trying very hard not to say something. Because my aunt was taken to the hospital for pressure, hypertension, and I was like, I ain't about to carry this woman pressure up in this place, because I would just press chocolate in this place. The whole place would be on fire. But I was like, she has the right to know what you're putting in her IV, what you're giving her, and what it's for. The least you can do is just, nobody asked you to go in depth, just let her know the name of the medication and what it's for, and that's pretty much it. You guys get angry when we try to compare Western standard, but these hospitals have been around for a rack of ages. From the time I was a little girl, we went to Catholic hospital, we went to JFK hospital. A lot of those doctors that are in there, a lot of the head of those institutions have traveled abroad. Some of them have lived abroad. So there should be no reason why we don't have bedside manners. That's like the least of it all, right? The treatment and all of that, the quality of the care, that's a different thing. But just basic bedside manner, it helps a lot to relieve that mental stress from the patient. And that was lacking. And when I mentioned it, we that were at the hospital visiting, they were like, oh, Catholic is better. Go to JFK and you will puke. Pretty much. They were like, Catholic is way better. Now, on the plus side is, it took them forever to get her a room to transfer her. When they did transfer her upstairs, I think she was in a private ward. The rooms were pretty nice. They were big and decent. It had air conditioning there. It had a nice bed. It was spacious enough for your guests to sit, etc. But then I didn't really stay. I had to leave. So that's like the Catholic experience. So I was going in my mind. I'm like, I started to hunt, and somebody told me about this hospital in Liberia. They were like, if you ever get sick, it's expensive, but you can go there. It's called AMI. And AMI. And I was like, you always have that second guess. Like, if you guys say it's good, how good is good? Or what is good? So, but then every time we would drive by the place, I would read a little bit on the assigned board, and I was like, oh, they have some good specialties here, like cardiology, what's the other one? Urology, and there's some specialties work that they do there, gynecology, those kind of things. And then they also do emergency 24 hours. So I was like, oh, okay. Emergency services, they respond to emergency services. So every time I would go by, I would read a little bit on their sign with the services that they provided. So I was like, I told Rich, I was like, God forbid, if anything happens to us, we need to make sure we make our way here. I don't care how much it costs, but don't take me to Catholic hospital, and definitely don't take me to JFK. I don't know where else. There are a couple of small private clinics, small ones that are around, but I don't have any experience with them to recommend them. But the AMI or it's like a hospital. It's not a clinic. It's a hospital. And apparently that's where all the expats go. And if you're from abroad, most likely you might go there. So what was my experience at AMI? Now, if you ever had the fear of healthcare in Liberia, erase that fear, because we got a healthcare institution that is equivalent to the Western standard. If I may say so myself. And y'all know I'm kind of hard to please. Y'all know I don't just give reviews or feedbacks because of favoritism. No, I'm going to say it just how it is. There are some negatives, and I'm going to talk about the negatives, but overall, excellent care. So let's start. I started having fever, and the fever it was kind of mild from the start. So I would take my little Tylenol and it would go away, and then after a couple of hours it would come back. It started like that, and then the fever started to get really high, and we didn't have any thermometer in the house. We do in Ghana. But I was like, I can feel that I'm overheating. It's not like a normal fever where it's like, oh, I feel like I'm coming down with something. This fever intensity was getting higher and higher and higher. I felt like my organs were going to shut down. I could feel me burn from within. And just how I felt the burn from within, the touch of my skin felt like a burn. I was overheating. So I started with the Tylenol, and then it wasn't really breaking it. Then I started to do ibuprofen. So I had a little abdominal pain as well. So I started with the ibuprofen. I would alternate between the Tylenol and the ibuprofen, and it would buy me a little bit of time. Then I started to get to the point where neither of them were really working. Like, it would buy me 2 hours of the fever being down, the abdominal pain is down. And then I started having back pain. I was just miserable. So then Rich was like, maybe it's malaria. So, I mean, we bring all of our low over-the-counter meds. I'm like, I'll just do the over-the-counter meds because I don't even know if I want to go to the hospital. Maybe I should just go to Ghana. I'm thinking about all these things in my head. And then he's like, maybe it's malaria. And I'm like, but it doesn't feel like the symptom of malaria, though. I sent him to get me some Theraflu. And he's like, this thing doesn't look like a flu. Because I didn't have any nasal congestion or anything. Nothing nasal was going on. It was just high fever and pain in certain parts of my body. The pain became so bad in my muscles that I couldn't sit on my bottom. Like, my butt muscle hurt. And then my lower back straight down to the glute was hurting. I would sit and I would feel the burn, and I would twist and turn in the chair, or I'll have to stand up. So it started on Saturday. By Wednesday, I started to feel dizzy. I went to the bathroom. I was burning up. Came from grooming Nico and went to lie down. And I'm lying down. I'm like, oh, I got it. And I'm urinating a lot, right? So I'm thinking, oh, I'm drinking a lot of fluids. I'm urinating and blah, blah, blah. So I go to the bathroom, and I feel like I was going to pass out. So I'm like, oh, no, this is not looking good. Reggie, we need to go to the hospital. Like, I feel weak. I'm getting weaker. And my fever is just out the roof. I swear, if we would have measured it that time, it was probably 103 or 1. I mean, it was pretty high. It was high. To the point where it was making me weak. And I'm like, you know what? These high fevers usually go to the brain. I better not get cuckoo in this place. So I could barely even walk to the car. That's how weak I was. So then he drove me straight to the army hospital. By the time we got there, before we got there, he called to find out, because we know in Africa is like cash service, right? So we needed to know like how much to have available, maybe like go to the ATM, get some money, and then go just to get started. So the guy was like, do you guys have insurance? So we're like, yeah, we do, but it's in the US. He's like, well, we do accept some international insurance. Which insurance do you have? We're with Cigna. He's like, yeah, bring your card and we'll see if your insurance cover whatever care you get here. So we took our Cigna card, And apparently, we thought it had the international portion to it, but it was just limited to the US. It didn't have the international portion to that. So it couldn't get covered through the insurance. But just one point, they do accept insurances from the US, some of them. And if you add an international, like make sure your insurance in the US has an international piece to it, it'll cover your service here, and that would be super helpful. It'll give you peace of mind. So we were like, either way, we're not really planning to use insurance. We're just going to pay for our service. So they were like, cash pay. Yep. So we got there. The nurse came to me, introduced herself. I'm going to be your nurse and I'll take care of you. Okay. They gave the form to Rich to fill out. While he was filling it out, they took me to the ER, and it wasn't probably an ER service kind of thing, but they didn't have an available bed at that moment. So, and the beds in the ERs were clear. They didn't have any patients in the ER. So the doctor said, just take her to one of the beds on the ER and we can start the treatment from there. So got to the ER and they started, the AC was on, blowing nice and cool. It kind of helped me. I was kind of cold a little bit. I'm like, they're like, you're burning up. We need to at least get you to cool down a little bit. So if you can just bear with us, let's have it on for a little bit. They started treating me right away. And then drew some blood, went labs, went to run the test. Got me IV going. That fever started breaking. I started sweating a little bit. Fever started going away. I started smiling. And of course, you know, the mouth is going to come right away. So then the doctor came back after like an hour or so. And he was like, we ran your labs and you have typhoid plus. So I was like, plus? Why is there a plus behind it? But then I was like, well, I feel good now. I mean, I can go home, right? He was like, no, you got to get admitted for 2 days. And I was like, what? He's like, you cannot treat this thing at home. You got to get treated here. It's not something you can treat at home. So I was like, okay. And then they got my room ready, transferred me into the room, set it up. And then the shift changed. The nurse that took care of me in the ER kind of did her report over to the night shift nurse. That nurse came in, introduced herself. My name is this. I'm going to be a nurse overnight. Like, the service was remarkable. Every time those nurses came in to do anything, they would tell me exactly what they're doing. Every medication they gave, they would tell me what the medication was, what it did, and then kind of keep me. Even the doctor was checking on me. That thing would be like, doctors don't show up. In fact, they can just leave you and go home, and then the nurses just take over and do everything. My doctor was there pretty late and checking on me throughout the day, like making sure I'm okay. Every morning he comes in, they will do rounds and all of that. Like, I felt like I was in the US. My room had a call button. I would push that button and those nurses would come in a heartbeat. Like, heartbeat. And one thing that was impressive too, it didn't have to be my nurse. There were different nurses that were responding to that call. Like, every time I put it on, whoever that was around came to attend to me just to find out what I needed. Oh, your nurse is busy right now. Is there anything I can do to help you? And I was like, no, this is what we're talking about, you know? So, they were very, very, even the process, like their techniques and their methods and everything. When they wanted to give me injection, I'm not a big fan of injections, so I was like resisting. That girl counseled me into it. And I was like, okay, you know, I guess I can. And once she gave me that shot, I felt better. In like 30 minutes, I started to feel better. The service is just top notch. So I didn't say anything to my mom, right? She came to visit, and she was just sitting in the recliner chair they had in the room. After like 15 minutes, she was like, "This place is different, no?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" She said, "What? You can tell that the people are trained, internationally trained. That nurse have been in here, I don't know how many times, checking on you." She was like, "In other hospitals, you have to run after your nurse. They disappear, you can't find them. And when you finally find them and you question them, they would cheat you up. Say this girl has been so patient. She comes in here, she provides the service. My mom was blown away. I didn't even say anything to her. I already had my A+ feedback. She came and she added to it. She was like, "This is amazing." Um, I stayed there, and then day 2, I was still spiking a little bit of fever here and there. They didn't want to discharge me because of that fever. They had to get it under control. While pumping me with some antibiotics and the treatment for the typhoid. I had UTI that got complicated and all of that. Um, so they took very good care of me. Very good. Every morning, the accountant will come to the room, give a printout of my bill. So far, this is where you're at. A breakdown of every single thing that has been done. With the cost, the unit, how many pieces, medication, everything. And then you pretty much have insight into that. You're not blindly just going. And I didn't need to be stressed about like the bill. They were just focused on making sure I got better. And it didn't seem like they were trying to make money out of me or anything. I was genuinely ill. And even when I got sick of just being in the hospital, I was sick of being in the hospital. I don't know how people do it who have long-term illnesses. I pray to God I never have to go there. 2 days was too much. And then I had to stay a third day. I was going out of my head. And I realized that I was still spiking fever here and there. So I didn't really fight them about staying, and they were still flushing me out. So by Friday evening, I got discharged. Everything was good. The doctor came, gave me a good synopsis of what went on and kind of what they did. And they were gonna send me some antibiotics home. I had stabilized to the point where I think I could go home and continue my treatment there. And from that treatment, after the treatment, I should go back to the hospital to rerun the labs and make sure that I'm cleared. I just completed the treatment. So I will be going back sometime this week to redo my labs. And then my total bill, the treatment, the overnight charges, like lodging and everything there, came up to $1,400. And if you're from abroad and you're super sick like that, and you get that level of care, it's worth it. It is so worth it. In the layman's term, Liberian way, it's expensive to just come up with that kind of cash to just take care of like typhoid or infection or something. But good healthcare is wealth. And if you have the money and you're holding on to it and going to places where you pay $300 or $400 and go through all of those shenanigans, you're doing yourself a disservice. They actually have local insurances that they use here. And one of it, I don't remember the name right now, but we are planning on just getting a local insurance here. And that same insurance is in Ghana. So regardless of where we are, we can actually use the insurance service to cover the care. So imagine if we had insurance, if our insurance covered that, we probably was just going to pay maybe around $200 or so. So it's awesome, especially for that level of care. And yeah, my experience there was AA+. Now, the downside of that, I think they should have added they had a lunch menu from the Boulevard Palace restaurant, but every time you order, you had to pay for it. It was built to your stay. And I was like, is anything free in this hospital? You're charging me all this money for a room and board, and you can't even put food part of it in one charge. The nurse was laughing. Um, and then secondly, I was leaving. I was like, can I get a copy of my report at least so I can know why I came here and what was done and kind of my at home instructions and those kind of thing. And they were like, oh yeah, sure. But apparently it was kind of late. They couldn't print it out. I don't know why. So they requested my email so that they would send it to me. But I have not received it yet. So I don't know if they missed, maybe they may have missed the email, type it in the wrong way or something. But when I go to redo my labs, I will get it from them. And that's just the thing. And yeah, but overall it was premium A+ service, and they offer a lot of services there. Another downside of that is it's not located in every part of the country or every part of the city. So imagine if we were living in Marshall, we would have to, it's located right opposite the UN headquarters on 3rd Street or 1st Street, whatever that is, adjacent City Hall. It's a black building. You wouldn't really tell it's a hospital. It has on the AMI. That's where it's located. So imagine leaving from, I know that they have good service. Imagine me I have an emergency and we have to drive all the way from Marshall there. That's a downside. Or if I were living in Burroughsville and I needed to come there in case of an emergency. But if you just have regular primary care, it's okay. They do primary cares there as well. Yeah, but great service. So that's one healthcare I can recommend any day. The labs don't seem, depending on what you go there for, the labs don't seem expensive. If you're just going for a day service, I think it'll be affordable. Because I stayed there 3 nights with a lot of medications and stuff. And then my take-home meds and everything was part of that. Oh, I shouldn't forget, they actually gave me a discount of $200. So I paid $1,200. And my daughter was like, I never knew hospitals give discounts. I was like, me either, but I'm going to take it. I was like, well, I'm going to take it. Yeah, so if you have any questions, though, leave it in the comment section. Let's talk about it. I will recommend it any day. I hope they can expand their services here in Liberia, where they can have mini clinics around the different cities. They are located in some premium Western countries and Africa. They're in South Africa, the US, and I think there's one in the UK or so. And you can tell my doctor was a foreign doctor. However, there were some Liberian doctors there. And everyone were just trained. Another thing was I was kind of around the nurses station, and Liberians talk loud, so it was kind of loud a little bit. But right around that change of shift, and then it quiets down, which is normal. Even in the US, the rooms around the nurses station is usually, you get all the lectures and talks and stuff. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you have any concerns or comments. Don't be afraid. Come, we got you. We're here. I'm feeling much better now. You'll see more of me here soon. Thank you and have a good day. Bye-bye.